My uncle told me I was no longer welcome at any family gatherings because I brought bad luck wherever I went, and for 3 years I believed I was cursed until my grandmother stood up at Christmas dinner and revealed the devastating truth about what really happened the night my cousin died. My name is Olivia, and I'm 28 years old. This story is about how I became the family's scapegoat for a tragedy I had nothing to do with, and how one brave woman finally set the record straight after years of lies. I'm still processing everything that happened, but I need to share this because maybe it will help someone else who has been unfairly blamed for things beyond their control. I grew up in a big Italian family. The kind where everyone gets together for every holiday and birthday and random Sunday dinner. My dad has 3 brothers and they all married and had kids, so there are a lot of us. Family was everything growing up. We were loud and chaotic and always in each other's business, but it felt like love. My uncle Marco was my dad's oldest brother. He was the unofficial head of the family after my grandfather passed away. He had 2 sons, Anthony and Luca. Anthony was my age, and we grew up together like siblings. We were inseparable as kids. We had sleepovers and inside jokes and plans to open a restaurant together someday. He was more than my cousin. He was my best friend. When we were 25, Anthony got engaged to his girlfriend Rachel. The whole family was thrilled. We started planning this huge Italian wedding with hundreds of guests. I was chosen to be a bridesmaid. Anthony asked me to give a speech at the rehearsal dinner because we were so close. I was honored and excited. The wedding was planned for October. It was going to be at this beautiful vineyard estate. Everyone was involved in the planning. My aunts were making centerpieces. My uncles were arguing about the wine selection. My grandmother was teaching Rachel family recipes. It was everything a big Italian wedding should be. 2 months before the wedding in August, Anthony died in a car accident. He was driving home from work late at night, and a drunk driver ran a red light and hit him. He died instantly. Our entire family was destroyed. The grief was unbearable. Uncle Marco aged 10 years overnight. Aunt Sophia stopped speaking for weeks. Rachel was completely broken. I was devastated. I had lost my best friend, my cousin, my chosen sibling. I couldn't eat or sleep. I cried until I had no tears left. The funeral was the worst day of my life. Seeing Anthony in that casket, knowing I would never hear his laugh again, or share another meal with him, or stand beside him at his wedding. It was too much. In the immediate aftermath, everyone was supportive of each other. We clung together in our grief. We told stories about Anthony and cried, and tried to make sense of something that made no sense. Uncle Marco was quiet, but he seemed to be holding it together. We all thought we would heal together as a family. But then things started to change. It was subtle at first. Uncle Marco would look at me strangely during family dinners. He would leave rooms when I entered. He stopped speaking to me directly. When I tried to talk to him about Anthony or share memories, he would walk away. I thought he was just grieving differently. I gave him space. About 3 months after Anthony's death, we had a family gathering for Thanksgiving. I showed up with my parents, like always. But when Uncle Marco saw me, he pulled my dad aside. They had a heated conversation in the other room. My dad came back looking upset and confused. He said we needed to leave. In the car, my dad told me that Uncle Marco didn't want me at family events anymore. I was confused and hurt. Why would he ban me? My dad said Marco didn't give a clear explanation, but he was firm about it. He said Marco needed time, and we should respect that. I cried the whole way home. I tried to reach out to Uncle Marco. I sent him messages saying I loved him, and I was here if he needed to talk. I said I was grieving Anthony too, and we should support each other. He never responded. Eventually, he blocked my number. I asked my other aunts and uncles what was happening, but nobody would give me straight answers. They just said to give Marco time. Christmas came, and I wasn't invited to the family gathering. My parents went, but I stayed home alone. It was the first Christmas I had ever spent apart from my extended family. I felt like I was being punished, but I didn't know what I had done wrong. My mom brought me leftovers and told me everyone missed me, but Uncle Marco had made it clear I wasn't welcome. This pattern continued for months. Every family event happened without me. Birthdays, Easter, random Sunday dinners. I was excluded from all of it. My cousins would post photos on social media, and I would see my entire family together while I sat home alone. It was torture. Finally, about a year after Anthony's death, my Aunt Carla pulled me aside after running into me at the grocery store. She looked uncomfortable but determined. She said she felt I deserved to know why Marco had banned me. I braced myself for whatever she was going to say. Marco blames you for Anthony's death, she said quietly. He thinks you bring bad luck. He believes that if you hadn't been so involved in the wedding planning, Anthony would still be alive. I felt like the ground had dropped out from under me.
What?
That doesn't make any sense. I had nothing to do with the accident. A drunk driver killed Anthony. How is that my fault? Aunt Carla looked pained. Marco isn't thinking rationally. He's looking for someone to blame, and he's fixated on you. He says bad things happen when you're around. He's convinced himself that you're cursed or something. I know it's not fair, but he's grieving and he's not thinking clearly.
But it's been a year, I said.
And he's telling the whole family to exclude me. How is that okay? It's not okay, Aunt Carla said. But Marco is the oldest brother. People defer to him. And everyone is so focused on supporting him through his grief that they're not questioning his decisions. I'm sorry, Olivia. I don't agree with it, but I don't know what to do. I went home and cried for hours. My own uncle thought I was cursed. He blamed me for his son's death, even though I had nothing to do with it. And my entire family was going along with it. I felt abandoned and betrayed, and so incredibly alone. I started to internalize the blame. Maybe I was bad luck. Maybe I should have seen some sign. Maybe if I had called Anthony that night and kept him on the phone longer, the timing would have been different, and he would have missed the drunk driver. I spiraled into guilt and depression. My parents tried to advocate for me, but Uncle Marco wouldn't budge. He made it clear that if I showed up to any family event, he would leave. So the family chose him. They didn't invite me because they didn't want to upset him more. I understood on some level, but it still hurt deeply. I stopped going on social media because seeing my family together without me was too painful. I withdrew from friendships. I threw myself into work. I was functioning but barely. The grief of losing Anthony combined with being scapegoated by my family was destroying me. 2 years passed like this. 2 years of being excluded from the family I had grown up in. 2 years of carrying blame for something I didn't do. 2 years of wondering what I could have done differently. I was stuck in this horrible limbo of grief and guilt. Then this past Christmas, everything changed. It was 3 years after Anthony's death. My parents had been invited to Christmas dinner at Uncle Marco's house, like always. I stayed home, like always. But about an hour into the dinner, my phone started ringing off the hook. It was my cousin Sophia calling. Then my dad. Then my Aunt Teresa. All within minutes of each other. I answered my dad's call. "You need to come to Uncle Marco's house right now," he said. His voice was shaking. "Dad, you know I'm not invited," I said. "Olivia, just come.
Please."
Grandma just said something and everything is falling apart. You need to be here." My grandmother was 85 years old and had been getting increasingly frail. If she needed me, I would go even if Uncle Marco kicked me out. I drove to his house with my heart pounding. When I arrived, the front door was open and I could hear raised voices inside. I walked in nervously. The entire family was there. At least 40 people crammed into Uncle Marco's house. The dining room table was still set with half-eaten food. Everyone turned to look at me when I entered. The room fell silent. My grandmother was standing at the head of the table, tiny and fierce. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Come here, child," she said. I walked over to her confused. She took my hand and turned to face Uncle Marco, who looked pale and shocked. "I have stayed silent for 3 years," my grandmother said in her heavily accented English. "I stayed silent because I thought maybe Marco would come to his senses. But he hasn't. And I cannot go to my grave knowing what I know and letting this girl suffer." "Mama, please," Uncle Marco said.
His voice was strained.
"Not now." "Yes, now," my grandmother said firmly. "You have punished Olivia for 3 years. You have made her believe she is cursed. You have turned this family against an innocent girl, and all because you cannot face the truth." The room was completely silent. Everyone was staring at my grandmother. I was holding my breath. What truth was she talking about? "Anthony was not killed by some random drunk driver," my grandmother said. Her voice broke. "The drunk driver was your son, Luca." The room erupted. People gasping and shouting. Uncle Marco yelling no. Aunt Sophia collapsing into a chair sobbing. My mind couldn't process what I was hearing. Luca? Anthony's younger brother? That was impossible. My grandmother raised her hand for silence. The room quieted down, but the tension was suffocating. Luca had been drinking at a bar that night. He got in his car to drive home, even though he was drunk. He ran the red light. He hit Anthony's car. He killed his own brother. "That's not true," Luca said from the corner. He looked terrified. "Mama, that's not what happened." "It is true," my grandmother said. "You called me that night from the hospital. You were crying. You told me everything. You begged me not to tell anyone. You said it would destroy the family." The police report said an unidentified drunk driver fled the scene. "You left your brother dying in that car, and you ran." Aunt Sophia was screaming now. Uncle Marco looked like he was going to be sick. My father had his hand over his mouth in horror. I felt dizzy. This couldn't be real. Anthony's own brother killed him, and then let everyone believe it was a stranger? "You have known this the whole time?" Uncle Marco said to his mother. His voice was barely a whisper. "Yes," my grandmother said, "and it has eaten at me every day. But I am an old woman, and you are my son, and Luca is my grandson. I thought I was protecting the family by staying silent. But I was wrong. Because you blamed Olivia, an innocent girl who loved Anthony more than anyone. You made her the scapegoat because you couldn't face the real truth. That's why you banned me?" I said to Uncle Marco. My voice was shaking. "Because you knew the truth and you couldn't deal with it, so you blamed me instead?" Uncle Marco couldn't look at me. His hands were trembling. "I didn't know it was Luca," he said quietly. "I suspected something. The timeline didn't make sense. Luca came home that night acting strange. But I couldn't let myself believe it. It was easier to blame you. God help me, it was easier to blame you." "Easier?" I said. Anger was replacing my shock. "You destroyed my life because it was easier? You let me think I was cursed. You turned the whole family against me. You stole 3 years from me. Because it was easier?" "I'm sorry," Uncle Marco said. He was crying now. "I'm so sorry, Olivia. I knew deep down that it made no sense to blame you. But if I blamed you, I didn't have to look at my other son and see a murderer. I didn't have to accept that Luca killed Anthony. I chose the easier lie." Luca was sobbing in the corner. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I didn't mean to hit him. I didn't even know it was Anthony until later. By then, I had already left. I was so drunk and so scared. I'm sorry." The room exploded into chaos again. People yelling and crying and hugging each other. My dad came over and wrapped his arms around me. "I'm so sorry, baby," he said. "We should have questioned this more. We should have protected you." I was numb. 3 years of my life had been stolen because Uncle Marco couldn't face the truth about his son. 3 years of isolation and grief and self-blame. All because he needed a scapegoat, and I was convenient. The anger started to build in my chest. "You could have told the truth at any time," I said to my grandmother. 3 years. You watched me suffer for 3 years and said nothing." My grandmother's eyes filled with tears. "I know. I am ashamed. I told myself I was protecting the family, but I was being a coward. When I saw you walk in tonight looking so scared and broken, I knew I could not stay silent anymore. I am old. I will die soon. I could not leave this earth without setting it right."
"It's not right," I said. My voice was rising.
"Nothing about this is right. Anthony is dead. Luca killed him and ran away like a coward. Uncle Marco blamed me to protect Luca. You all went along with it. You all excluded me from the family. You let me believe I was cursed. None of this will ever be right." I turned to Luca, who was still sobbing. "You killed your brother. And then you let me take the blame for 3 years. How do you live with yourself? I don't, Luca said through his tears. I don't live with myself. I think about it every day. I wanted to confess, but I was too scared. I'm a coward. I'm so sorry, Olivia. I'm so sorry, Anthony. I'm sorry, everyone. Sorry doesn't bring him back, I said. And sorry doesn't give me back 3 years of my life. Uncle Marco tried to approach me, but I stepped back. Don't, I said. Don't come near me. You made a choice every single day for 3 years to keep lying, to keep blaming me, to keep me away from my family. Those were your choices. You don't get to apologize now and make this okay. I know, he said. I know I can never make this okay. But please know that I see now how wrong I was. How cruel I was to you. You didn't deserve any of this. You're right, I said. I didn't deserve it. I loved Anthony. I would have done anything for him. And you punished me for that love. You made me question myself and my worth. You stole my family from me. I will never forgive you for that. The room was silent again. Everyone was watching this confrontation with horror and sadness. My mother was crying. My cousins looked devastated. The truth was out, but it wasn't bringing any relief. It was just revealing how broken everything was. I turned to address the whole room. All of you went along with this. For 3 years you excluded me from family events. You believed I was cursed or bad luck or whatever story you told yourselves. Not one of you questioned it hard enough. Not one of you stood up for me. You chose the easy path of going along with Marco instead of fighting for what was right. My Aunt Teresa spoke up. We didn't know the real reason. Marco just said he needed space from you. We thought he was grieving. For 3 years, I said. For 3 years you thought it was normal and acceptable to ban someone from the family? You didn't think that was cruel? You didn't think I deserved an explanation or a conversation? Nobody had an answer for that. They looked ashamed, but it was too late. The damage was done. I looked at my grandmother. Thank you for finally telling the truth. But I wish you had been brave enough to do it 3 years ago. A lot of pain could have been avoided. She nodded. You are right. I failed you. I failed Anthony. I failed everyone by staying silent. I turned back to Uncle Marco and Luca. I don't know what happens now. That's for you to figure out. But I'm done being the scapegoat. I'm done carrying blame that isn't mine. And I'm done with a family that would treat me this way. I started walking toward the door. My parents followed. Olivia, wait. Uncle Marco called. Please don't leave like this. I stopped and turned around. You told me to leave 3 years ago. Now I'm choosing to leave. Don't ask me to stay when you spent so long telling me I wasn't welcome. I walked out of that house and got in my car. My parents got in with me. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I started crying. Not sad crying. Angry crying. 3 years of suppressed rage and pain coming out all at once. We should have done more, my dad said. We should have fought harder for you. I'm so sorry we let this happen. You're right, I said. You should have. But everyone was so afraid of upsetting Marco that nobody thought about me. That's what hurts the most. I wasn't even a priority. My mom was crying in the back seat. What do you need from us, honey? What can we do? I need time, I said. I need to process all of this. I need to figure out if I even want a relationship with this family anymore. Over the next few days, the family imploded. Luca had a breakdown and checked himself into a psychiatric facility. Uncle Marco was facing the reality that his surviving son had killed his other son. Aunt Sophia filed for separation. The family was taking sides and arguing about who knew what and when. My phone was flooded with messages. Cousins apologizing. Aunts and uncles saying they had no idea. People trying to explain why they went along with my exclusion. I read them all, but I didn't respond to most of them. I was too angry and too hurt. The only person I did respond to was my cousin Sophia. She sent me a long message apologizing for not questioning things more. She said she felt terrible for all the times she posted photos of family gatherings knowing I wasn't there. She said she wanted to make it right if I would let her. I told her I appreciated the apology, but I needed space. I said I loved her, but I wasn't ready to just jump back into family relationships like nothing happened. She understood and said she would be there whenever I was ready. My grandmother called me a few days after Christmas. I need you to know something, she said. I did not tell the truth to hurt Marco or Luca. I told the truth to free you. You have carried a burden that was never yours to carry. I could not let you carry it anymore. Thank you, I said. But Grandma, you let me carry it for 3 years. You watched me suffer and did nothing. That's hard to get past. I know, she said. I am a foolish old woman who made a terrible choice. I thought keeping the family together was more important than telling the truth. But family built on lies is not real family. I should have known that. What's going to happen to Luca? I asked. I don't know, she said. The police are involved now. He will face consequences. As he should. What he did was unforgivable. Killing his brother, and then hiding it. Letting you take the blame. He has much to answer for. About 2 weeks after the Christmas revelation, Uncle Marco showed up at my apartment. I almost didn't let him in, but curiosity won. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in weeks. He probably hadn't. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, he said immediately. I know I don't deserve that. I'm here to tell you the full truth. You deserve to know everything. I let him in. We sat in my living room in awkward silence for a moment. Then he started talking. The night Anthony died, I got a call from the hospital. They said there had been an accident, and I needed to come immediately. When I got there, they told me Anthony was gone. I was in shock. I couldn't process it. Then I saw Luca in the waiting room. He looked panicked. When I asked him what he was doing there, he broke down. He told me he had been at the scene, that he might have been involved. He was drunk and confused, and he ran. Uncle Marco's voice broke. I should have called the police right then. I should have made him take responsibility. But he's my son. My only living son in that moment. I couldn't lose both of them. So I told him to go home and not say anything. I told him we would figure it out later. But we never did. We just buried the truth along with Anthony. So you knew from the beginning, I said. I knew Luca was somehow involved. I didn't know for sure that he was the driver until Mama confirmed it at Christmas. But I suspected. And I couldn't face it. So when the grief became too much, I needed someone to blame. Someone other than my living son. You were there. You were visible. You loved Anthony so much that it hurt to look at you. So I convinced myself you brought bad luck. That maybe if you hadn't been so involved in wedding planning, Anthony wouldn't have been on that road that night. I know it makes no sense. But grief doesn't make sense. That's not an excuse, I said. It's not, he agreed. It's an explanation, but not an excuse. What I did to you was cruel and unforgivable. I took my pain and guilt and I dumped it on you, an innocent person who was also grieving. I am so deeply ashamed. We sat in silence.
I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream at him,
to tell him how much he hurt me, but I was too exhausted. 3 years of carrying this weight had drained me. Luca is being charged, Uncle Marco said. Hit and run resulting in death. Leaving the scene of an accident. He's going to prison. My son is going to prison for killing my other son. And I helped cover it up. They might charge me too. Good, I said. It came out harsher than I meant, but I didn't take it back. You both deserve to face consequences.
We do, he said.
I just wanted you to know the full story before everything becomes public. And I wanted to tell you that none of this was ever your fault. Not even a little bit. You were a perfect cousin to Anthony. He loved you so much. He would be devastated to know how we treated you. That broke something in me. I started crying. He was my best friend. And you took away my ability to grieve him properly. I couldn't even talk about him without feeling guilty. You ruined my memories of him. I know, Uncle Marco said. He was crying too. I destroyed so much. My family, your relationship with us, Anthony's memory. All because I was too weak to face the truth. I will regret it for the rest of my life. He left shortly after that. I sat alone in my apartment crying for Anthony, for the friendship we had,
for the future we had planned,
for the years of grief I had carried alone. for everything that was stolen from me. Over the next few months, things continued to unravel. Luca pleaded guilty to vehicular manslaughter and leaving the scene. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Uncle Marco was charged as an accessory after the fact for helping cover it up. He got 2 years probation and community service. The family fractured into different camps. Some people stood by Marco and Luca, saying they had suffered enough. Others were disgusted by what they did and cut them off. My immediate family and a few aunts and uncles reached out, trying to rebuild relationships with me. I was selective about who I let back in. My grandmother passed away about 6 months after the Christmas revelation. She was 86. I went to her funeral and said goodbye. Despite everything, I was grateful she told the truth before she died. She freed me, even if it came later than it should have. At the funeral, Uncle Marco tried to talk to me. I told him I wasn't ready. Maybe I would never be ready. He nodded and walked away. That was the last time I saw him. I started rebuilding my life slowly. I reconnected with cousins who genuinely apologized and showed through actions that they wanted me back. I set firm boundaries with anyone who tried to minimize what happened. I continued therapy to work through the trauma of being scapegoated. About a year after the truth came out, I visited Anthony's grave for the first time since the funeral. I had avoided it because going felt too painful with all the guilt I carried. But now I could go without that false guilt. I brought flowers and I sat by his headstone, and I talked to him. "I'm sorry it took me so long to come back," I said. "I thought I wasn't allowed to grieve you, because everyone made me think it was my fault you died. But it wasn't my fault. It was never my fault. Your brother killed you, and your dad blamed me, and I believed them. But I know better now." I told him about everything that happened. The 3 years of exile. The Christmas revelation. The fallout. I told him I missed him every day. That I thought about him all the time. That he was still my best friend, even though he was gone. I also told him I was working on forgiving. Not forgetting, but forgiving. Because carrying anger was exhausting, and I had already carried enough for other people. I was choosing to put down that burden and walk forward lighter. 2 years after the truth came out, I'm doing better. Not perfect, but better. I have a smaller family circle now, but it's healthier. I only spend time with people who truly value me. I don't accept poor treatment out of obligation. I know my worth. I still think about Anthony all the time. But now I can remember him with joy instead of guilt. I can tell stories about our childhood without wondering if somehow I caused his death. I can look at photos without feeling cursed. The truth freed me from a prison I never belonged in. Uncle Marco sends me a card every year on Anthony's birthday. He writes that he's sorry and he understands if I never forgive him. I don't respond. Maybe someday I will. Maybe I won't. I'm giving myself permission to take as long as I need. Luca wrote me a letter from prison. A long letter apologizing and explaining and begging for forgiveness. I read it once and then threw it away. I don't owe him forgiveness. He killed my best friend and let me take the blame. That's not something you forgive easily, if ever. The other day I ran into Rachel, Anthony's fiancée, at a coffee shop. We hadn't seen each other since before he died. She hugged me and we both cried. We talked for 2 hours about Anthony and about what happened. She said she always thought it was strange that I was blamed, but she was so lost in her own grief, she didn't question it. She apologized for not standing up for me. I told her the same thing I've told everyone. I understand that grief makes people act in ways they normally wouldn't. But understanding doesn't erase the harm. Actions have consequences even when they come from pain. People have to live with the choices they made. Rachel and I made plans to meet up again, to share memories of Anthony and support each other in our grief. It felt good to connect with someone who loved him as much as I did. Someone who didn't blame me for losing him. I've learned a lot from this experience. I learned that families can be toxic even when they claim to love you. I learned that people will scapegoat you to avoid facing uncomfortable truths. I learned that silence can be just as harmful as lies. I learned that standing up for yourself is necessary even when it costs you relationships. Most importantly, I learned that other people's guilt is not your responsibility to carry. Uncle Marco needed someone to blame, so He didn't have to face that his son killed his other son. That was his guilt to carry, not mine. And I wasted 3 years carrying it before someone finally took it off my shoulders. If you're reading this and you're being blamed for something that isn't your fault, please hear me. You are not responsible for other people's pain. You are not cursed. You are not bad luck. You are a person worthy of love and respect and fair treatment. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. And if you know something that could free someone from false blame, please speak up. Don't wait 3 years like my grandmother did. Don't let an innocent person suffer to protect guilty parties. The truth might hurt, but lies hurt more in the long run. My uncle banned me from family events because he said I brought bad luck. For 3 years, I carried that blame and that isolation. Then my grandmother revealed the truth, and everything changed. It didn't fix everything. It didn't bring Anthony back. It didn't erase 3 years of pain. But it did free me. It gave me back my dignity and my truth. It showed me who in my family was worth keeping and who I needed to let go. It taught me that I am stronger than I ever knew. That I can survive being scapegoated and come out the other side still standing. I'm still here. Still standing. Still growing. Still healing. And I'm no longer carrying blame that was never mine to begin with. That's not a perfect ending, but it's an honest one. And after 3 years of lies, honesty is exactly what I needed. The truth set me free even though it came 3 years too late. And I'm building a life now that's based on that truth instead of the lies that almost destroyed me. That's my victory. Small but mine. And nobody can take it away from me ever again.